Hey everyone, Margarita here. I want to talk in this video about how Special Tree Spinal Care Facility, where my dad has been the majority of his injury since the beginning of 2023, is responsible for a lot of the problems that have happened with my dad. All of the different times my deranged mother was able to get away with poisoning batches of food and him getting rushed back to the hospital, and the level of responsibility that they hold for everything that has gone on. So I know I've made a couple other videos a little over a year ago talking about Special Tree Spinal Care Facility and some of what they've been doing and how they participated. But where we are today, my dad's basically never going to be coming home, even though his house was remodeled for him to come home to. That is due to my deranged mother's ongoing crimes for repeatedly poisoning batches of food and Special Tree Spinal Care Facility in Romulus, Michigan, allowing this to continue on. So initially I did report to them prior to him ever checking in there as a patient, which was sometime during February of 2023. I went in there and I said what the ongoing problems are regarding my mother, how she's been poisoning batches of food for decades, and how this injury is going to go if they allow her to continue to operate how she does and if they don't take me seriously. So at this point, I had already tried to make numerous reports of how she operates with the first hospital he was at, which was Beaumont in Royal Oak, Michigan. And all of those people, instead of investigating or speaking to the person that I hired to begin to document my deranged mother's ongoing crimes, and this person was hired at the beginning of 2020, so in the videos I refer to her as Charmaine, instead of any of those people reaching out to Charmaine to verify that she was hired for these reasons and that my deranged mother has been doing many different things, manipulating many people, getting away with many serious crimes, and that she has witnessed this firsthand. Instead of anybody that I told at that hospital looking into this or reaching out to her to verify any of this, they instead called my deranged mother, who at this point was not even back from California from the time my dad has had his initial injury. She did not return for 4 days, and those people then talked to her, and she just stated, oh, I've always had some mental disorder and this drug problem, and you can't believe anything I say, and I lie all the time, and all this stuff, which is crazy, because if you actually look into my real life, you'd be able to tell that none of what she's saying is real, that I'm the exact opposite of who she's been portraying me to be, and not one person is questioning this or looking into my real life. Everybody is going off these delusions that she is stating, either by phone or in person, and she's just stating she's my mother, not comprehending there's been no relationship, no contact for decades, and I bought numerous houses, in the past 20 some years, and nobody's looking at any of it. They're just believing what she's saying to be real. So going forward, they then enter this information into my dad's medical file falsely, and I got nowhere at that first hospital, climbed several levels, got all of their different business cards because I knew eventually I would be making these videos. And then I made a police report in that same city because nobody was taking my report seriously, and I knew if they eventually released him with her that she would eventually kill him. I wasn't aware that workers' comp was going to pay to remodel the house, but at this point I was concerned about him coming home and her pushing her down the basement stairs. So that was stated in my initial report, along with all the problems I had with all these people when I'm trying to report how my deranged mother operates. And it then led to me trying to report this to Special Tree Spinal Care Facility, where he was headed next. At this point, he was at U of M in Ann Arbor, and I wasn't getting anywhere with reporting this properly. So I reported to Special Tree Spinal Care Facility in Romulus because that's where he was headed. And I said, do not release him with her for any reason. This is what's going to end up happening. This is what she does. This is what she's going to do. This is how it's going to go. And every single person ignored what I said. They eventually brought it up with her when she did return from California, when she did eventually start becoming present there. Even then, she was only minimally present the first several months of his injury, 1 to 2 times a week. I was the one that was there almost every night, even though I'm sick and injured myself, dealing with a homeschooled child who suffered the same injuries as me while we're still under regular treatments, and I'm struggling to hold everything together from all her crimes and escapades, which were ongoing very heavily at this time. So every single person continued to ignore what I said. I eventually made a Romulus police report, and I did videos on what I stated in those Romulus reports already, so you can go back and view those videos. And not one person investigated anything I'm saying. Not one person is looking into any of this or reaching out to Charmaine or any of what I'm saying is real. They just believe her. She just says she's the mother and they believe her. Not comprehending I'm 100% self-made. I've been generating my own income for a very long time. She hasn't made anything of herself. She's been milking off my dad, stealing from my trust fund, making minimum wage her entire life, and has never had to be on her own or pay any bills. So there's a very big difference in lifestyle here and what I've been out here doing, what I've been building versus whatever she's ever had going on in total. And so right then and there, that's very provable, and nobody ever looked into any of it. So here she continues to lie, and then she eventually worked her way in, inching in, slowly getting herself to, instead of 1 to 2 days a week seeing my dad, she was inching into 3 to 4 days a week. And over time, she's slowly causing all these problems, all these repeated hospital visits, and trying to make people believe a false narrative about me. She's walking into the office in the daytime because those people are there. You know, I think they leave at like 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon, where I was coming in after that. So I never talked to any of these people directly. Here she's manipulating everybody in the office, telling them all these delusions about me, and everybody's believing it. So not one person ever spoke to me directly. They just continued to listen to everything she's saying. She just slowly grew this false narrative. And then as time was going on and she's creating more problems, and here I am trying to fix the problems, or at least get it so that like life can flow, because she's already created so much chaos and there's already so much fallout from everything she created way before my dad's injury that I still have to deal with all of that. And now I'm incorporating his injury and all the chaos and destruction and the problems she's creating during that. And I'm having to juggle all of it. And so I'm trying to get it in some type of working order where I can manage all of it. And in the meantime, she's creating more and more problems, more and more chaos, where it's not being managed properly and it's destroying everything I'm barely holding on to. And that was her agenda. So it's to make me look mentally and financially unstable, except for the fact that I'm extremely mentally and financially stable, which is why I was able to hold on to everything and juggle everything I'd been juggling and pull off everything I've been pulling off in the condition I've been in, what I've had to deal with, all the treatments I've had to pay for out of pocket, and what's all gone on. It doesn't make any sense. But not one person was listening to my reports. Not one person took them seriously, and they continued to allow my mother to come in there and poison batches of food regularly for my dad, which started immediately upon him being transferred there. So as soon as she started making her presence known, that's where I would come in the evening and find him with these symptoms settling in. She was not with him the first month or so of his injury, where he was at the Beaumont in Royal Oak, Michigan, and he was at U of M Ann Arbor. And I was the one that was there with him. He was not having these repeated symptoms, these cycles of symptoms, and all of the settling. And this was not happening to him there because she was not there. She only came 1 or 2 days a week during that entire time. So here she starts inching her way in 3 to 4 days a week once he's at Special Tree. Now, every evening I'm coming in, I'm finding him this way. She comes in the daytime, I was coming in the evening time. I was finding him slowly going downhill and suffering all these severe symptoms that this was not going on before. So right away, I knew that this was starting. I kept trying to report it. Nobody's listening to me. Instead, I'm just reporting this to Charmaine every week, where she's legally documenting everything in a medical file. Because at this point, this was the only way to continue to properly document beyond the initial reports I'd made in the different systems I had already made them in. So she just continued to document as she had already been doing for over 3 years at that point. And so there's notes and documents along the way. And way before this injury ever happening, there's many different occurrences where this was happening regularly to my dad because of the jealousy and envy, and him being at my house helping me work on different projects that I have going on at this house in Flat Rock, Michigan. And that's what she was doing to him back then. So there's many reports that Charmaine already had documented, and we already know this is how she operates. So here I was trying to report to Special Tree over and over again. They're not doing anything about it. I kept trying to tell different nurses. They weren't doing anything about it. She would just re-manipulate each person that I would tell. They would just believe her. So she says, oh, she's got this mental disorder, this drug problem. You can't believe anything she says. And she just kept it going and going and going to the point where she was allowed to just freely walk in there, poison batches of food repeatedly, leave him batches of poison food. Whereas once I picked up on that, I just started removing it all, throwing it away, and replacing it with something different every single day. I would just go get him whatever he wanted to eat, or I would just go to Kroger and get the pre-made different kinds of food they had that were ready to go, and I would get him something from there, and I just kept replacing it and bringing him something different every night. And this became very costly because not only was I staying at my house in Ohio during this time, so I'm driving over an hour, sick and injured myself, trying to homeschool my son because he's sick and injured with me. We're barely getting back and forth, can't even get back and forth, get to the point where I'm sleeping on my friend's couch half the week, and just so I could get to him for dinner, and then I would go home on the weekend to try to make it to work on the weekends, and pulling this off for over a year this went on. So with all that poison, all those poison batches of food, it became very costly with having to throw everything away that she's leaving him, because then I realized this is just going on repeatedly, and they're not doing anything about it. None of the staff there are doing anything about it. And Even if I would have went during the day and talked to any of those people, she'd already gotten a head start and manipulated all those people anyway, the way she had all the previous people I've already talked to. Now, this also includes the person who's in charge of my dad's workers' comp claim, Terry Knorr from North Star Care Management. She is the one facilitating all the different transfers, all the different hospital visits, all the different care. She's facilitating all of it. And I told her all of this long before my mother even came back from California. She also participated in all of this and jumped on her team and started participating in the crimes, believing all the delusions, and continuing to operate on my mother's behalf. This is all still going on to this very day. The reason I'm banned from Special Tree is because she worked numerous angles to try to make sure I'd be banned. She was working like 5 or 6 different angles just on me alone before the injury. And then here she was, once she was creating all the chaos and the problems since my dad's injury, she was working numerous more angles because it was creating so much chaos and so many problems. And I'm trying to juggle them and accommodate them, which I've been having to do for decades, literally having to accommodate all of this bullshit into my life to the point where I've never actually gotten to live my life. And here I am trying to accommodate it. And it's just getting so far out of control because it's coming at me from so many angles and there's just so much fallout. So here I was trying to get matters situated so life could flow, so I could actually get things in some type of working order, but she's just creating more and more chaos before I could ever even get each situation under control, and there's just all these rushes back to the hospital. So as she was getting these rushes back to the hospitals, when she started pulling my dad's pain meds from his chart, during each transfer, she would pull aside whatever nurse at whichever place he was transferred to, and they would pull it from his chart. And here he was under the assumption he was taking his pain pills. And then he started slowly suffering more and more and more because he wasn't being given his pain pills. So at first, I thought like a doctor had made a mistake and took it out of his file. And then I realized after so many times of this happening that it was her doing it during the transfers. Because at one point, U of M was able to verify that it stated word for word, somebody read this to me in his chart. It stated that he only takes half of a dose. It said a half of a dose or a quarter of a dose, I think. And that was when they read it to me, I realized it was her doing that, because after so many times of her completely pulling it and me recognizing that's what was going on and me getting someone to put it back in his file so he wasn't suffering, then she started to catch on that she needed to just lower the dose and not completely remove it because I was catching on and having it put back in. So that's where she started telling them he takes less than what he really takes, so it would still cause suffering and he wouldn't have enough pain medication to get through what he's dealing with. So that was where somebody at U of M read me that in his file. That's when I recognized for sure it was her doing it. It wasn't a medical mistake. It wasn't something a staff member had done at all these different facilities. It was her doing it. And that way, if he asked if he took it, they would look and they'd say that they gave it to him at whatever time. It was that point where he thought he was dying that he started asking for edibles, which he had been eating long before his injury. So that's when I started bringing them to him, and she used that as a reason to ban me because I'm this horrible person for bringing him edibles when she's the one creating the pain and the suffering. And what she's doing is illegal. She's tampering with medical records. She's tampering with his medications, and she's doing it intentionally to cause physical pain and suffering. So what she's doing is illegal. What I've done is not illegal. She used that to try to get me banned. But at the same time, here I was trying to get matters situated regarding the power of attorney and get the different bills situated, because there was bills that he was paying out of an account that she was not on, that she had no idea of. And nor did she even take the power of attorney when she did fraudulently get one. She didn't even assess anything at any time because she didn't intend on him living. She had no intention of assessing anything or paying anything off. That's why she cashed out his 401k 10 days after she tried to kill him at the beginning of 2024 and moved it into trust for herself right away because she had no intention on him living. So I was trying to get all of that situated, and that's why I got these power of attorney signed, and then that way I could get custody of him and remove him from ingesting the poison batches of food, which is creating all this extreme chaos, all this excessive money that's coming out of my pocket, all these rushes back to the hospital, me having to pay for all of us to eat out. So my older 2 kids, my younger son, my dad, I'm having to repeatedly pay for everybody to eat out during all these crazy rushes back to the hospital at all times of the day and night, on top of having to replace the food that I was replacing that she was poisoning. So it's costing me a fortune. I'm barely struggling, holding on. I'm paying for treatment out of pocket for myself and my son at the private center. I'm still struggling to keep everything going, keep everything flowing. I'm doing it, but it's getting very tight at this point, because now at this time I was away from this house in Flat Rock due to my deranged mother's crimes and inserting herself in the 2021 for gas bill. Here I was also in Ohio and paying all the bills there. So I was actually paying some of the extra bills here because that girl couldn't afford all of the bills and what they were creating, and it was only temporary. They weren't going to be here longer than 12 months. I found the damage in 12 months, and that's where no extra lease was signed and they were going to be getting out. So I already knew it was temporary from the jump, and I was paying for all of it, keeping everything going. She's causing all these excessive problems, and that was the whole reason for getting the power of attorney, so I could help facilitate getting this situated and stopping the poison batches of food, because no police department was listening to me. None of the staff were listening to me, and the only staff in the only hospital that listened to me was Beaumont Wayne, and the different nurses that were there were recognizing the pattern of the visits and how frequent they were, and it was the same repeated symptoms over and over again, because we were visiting with the same nurses every time, and they were the ones recognizing and starting to believe me. That is where she then poisoned his food while he was there during that visit at the beginning of 2024, and how he got resuscitated and went blind. And it was due to them starting to believe me. So that's why he got removed from ever going there again, because she couldn't have anybody listening to me or believing me. And here I had left a trail of reports all over the place, different agencies. I'd called to the top of the state when Special Tree was not taking my report seriously. And then here they started to ban me, believing my power of attorney was fraudulent, because she pops up and says, no, I've had it all along, see? Well, she didn't present it to anybody but Special Tree, because she knew it was not legit. She knew she got it signed fraudulently. So she never presented it to any of these banks or any of these places, because she knew it wasn't legit. And she knew she wasn't using it properly. So that's why she suddenly had to pop up and say she had it all along. Where here the care facility believed her. Instead of looking into anything I'm saying and everything I've been saying from day one, they just continue to operate on her crimes on her behalf and continue to allow her to freely walk in there and poison different batches of food. And here they are just, operating on her fraudulent power of attorney, which I can prove is fraudulent, but nobody's investigating, because all of these people have been involved in the crimes against me long term and helping her access my missing stolen trust fund, and they're still trying to permanently take me out so they can access what's left. So that's what was going on at that time, and all these different cops and attorneys were helping her. So nobody was actually investigating. When I said I could prove that her power of attorney is fraudulent, nobody actually investigated. So that's when I started calling to the top of the state, when they're trying to say I'm just banned because I stole all this money, and that I gave him edibles and I stole all his money and I got a fraudulent power of attorney signed. And that's when I started calling to the top of the state, many different agencies, and trying to report what she's been doing and how they're allowing her to just freely walk in here and continue to do this. And nobody's taking me seriously, and I've left a trail of reports. I reported with every agency I possibly could. And I'm not sure if they investigated or what, because I had so many chaotic situations going on at the time this was going on. I spent an entire 2 or 3 days placing phone calls trying to get somebody to at least look into this, or at least stop him from being able to go home. So I do know at that point that they shifted their idea on him being able to go home, even though they had done the remodel on their house for him to be able to come home in a wheelchair. That is when they stopped him from being able to come home. So they did at least listen in that department, but they still allowed her to freely walk into the care facility and poison batches of food regularly. And I know this because one of the times I ingested one of the poison batches of food. Well, I did it more than once, but one specific time, it was when I purchased that wrap for him, left it in there the night before, which means she took the poison, whatever she uses, whatever substance, she took it in there, she went into the pantry, and she unwrapped the wrap, put it in the wrap, and then went about her day. And it was for him. It was not meant for me, but she had caused so much suffering, and she did it so many times back to back to back leading up to that he started to slowly go downhill and decline, and he ended up back at the hospital later that night. And so I knew the wrap wasn't going to be good, and I ate it. And that's the only reason I ingested it. I also considered it safe because I'm the one that bought it. And we'd been eating these wraps regularly. So because I ate it that day, I was able to tell that she had significantly amplified whatever substance she uses. She significantly amplified it, and she brought it into the facility. Now, this is the care facility, Special Tree Spinal Care Facility, Romulus, who has facilitated all of this. And what none of these people realize is that I never stole any money. These power of attorneys are not fraudulent. Hers are fraudulent. They're still not investigating, not looking into any of this. And I never stole any money because I was sitting on $60-some thousand in homeowners insurance checks alone at that very time. So you cannot say that I stole $2,000 or $3,000 when I'm sitting on $60-some thousand just in homeowners insurance checks, and all of my checks are dated, along with my tax returns. The fact that I do taxes and my main self-employment was all still going on. And that's all provable because now it's all on my taxes, and I have all of these receipts from these homeowners checks that I was sitting on when they're trying to point the finger at me and make up these stories saying I stole all this money, which never actually happened. And the money that was taken was used to pay an attorney to get custody of my dad. And those money orders were made directly out to the attorney. It never crossed my hands. The money never crossed my hands. Just the document did, and it went to the attorney, and he cashed them. I never cashed them. So because nobody's actually looking into this and Special Tree's still just going on with her false narrative and she's, oh, poor me, turning up the waterworks, all these tears, poor me, boo-hoo, oh, my daughter's such a mental disorder drug addict, oh, she steals, she lies, all these things. Here they are believing every bit of bullshit she's feeding them, and they're just continuing on with it, acting like I need to stay banned from my dad forever because I'm this horrible person, when in all actuality it's the exact opposite, and they're letting the deranged lunatic freely walk in there, get him repeatedly rushed back to the hospital over the course of the last 3.5 years, and still keeping me banned, acting like that's not what's going on. Even though I've reported to their city's police department numerous times, made a bunch of videos on it, have proof of every single thing, and what every person had their hand in involved in the crimes against me, I have proof of all of it, and nobody's looking at any of it. But they seem to think that I should be banned from my dad forever because of all these lies and delusions, but yet nobody's looking into it. But she's still allowed to walk in there freely and poison batches of food. So they are responsible for my dad's slow decline over the course of all these years that he's been there. So now it's been 3.5 years. They're responsible for that slow decline because these were not natural declining moments. These were not incidences that were naturally occurring, causing him to slowly slip away. This was her repeated poisoning batches of food. And since I warned them not to release him into her care, the one time they did, she brought him back near death, barely alive. They had to call 911 and he went into septic shock, and that's how he got the trach tube. So I warned them in advance, put it in a police report in advance, 2 police reports in advance. They didn't listen to me. They allowed her to do all of this. And then she continued on still doing this. Even after that, he started to slowly make a recovery, and she still kept doing it. And it's Special Tree Spinal Care Facility in Romulus, Michigan, who allowed this to continue on. And as far as I'm concerned, they're still allowing it to continue on to the current day. So even if he's not regularly eating food, when he is eating food, she's doing it again. She's also been known to put it in the water. I do know she's done that before as well. And what she's doing is she's slipping it in. She's by bringing it in as her personal bottle of water, and she's mixing it in with the bottles of water that were on the table in front of him. And that's how she was mixing it in and slipping it in, because I was buying cases at Sam's Club at one point. But that's how she's able to get it in. And if that's not what he's doing anymore, then she very well could be just slipping it through his peg and getting it into a system that way, because it wouldn't take much, really. And I'm sure it's any of the above, all of the above. It's not going to take much. She'd been doing this all along. I do know she was doing it with the water. I do know she did bring it into the facility. I do know that she was mixing these batches of food at home, most of them, and bringing it in prepared already. And that's how it was going the whole time. And I told them this, and they just continued to allow her to do this. Because there should have never been a decline. These were not naturally occurring events. Every single rush back to the hospital was caused by her repeatedly poisoning batches of food. I'm not sure why not one person thought they should look into anything I'm saying, or why they would believe a deranged lunatic when there's proof of everything I've been doing in life for decades. There's proof that there was never any stolen money. There's all these receipts and proof that I was sitting on all this fucking money. There's no reason for me to steal $2 or $3 grand, on top of the fact that the attorney's name's on it, and I have those receipts too. These people have participated in the slow decline of my dad and the suffering that he's experienced, and banning me from my dad and my youngest son permanently based on all this bullshit that she's told them, and none of it's real. It can all be proven. Not one person's looked into it, including the police department, even though I've emailed them, I've sent them evidence directly, and I've made many different videos about it and reports in advance, along with reports at the Care Facility, Adult Protective Services, and the Wayne County Probate Court, who've also participated in the crimes, and I have proof of all of that as well. They all turn around and operated on her team and helped participate in the crimes. Now, it is very possible that all of these people were made promises of a payment out of my missing stolen trust fund, because that could have been why so many people turned and operated on her behalf, because she thought she was very close to permanently taking me out so she could access it, because they were all promising her that they could lock me up as long as she got custody of my dad in probate court. So it is very possible all of these people took payments, or it's possible only half of them took payments and some of them just agreed to participate and everybody just jumped on the bandwagon and they believe her because she turns up the waterworks and makes herself look like a victim. So that could be part of it, but the fact that Special Tree has allowed all of this to go on, and they are directly responsible for everything that's happened to my dad, they do need to be sued. I do need an attorney in that matter. I need many attorneys. I don't believe any moves are going to be able to be made until arrests are made, but there are many agencies who are responsible for the ongoing harassment, all the different crimes, the false arrests, the false reports, all the chaos, all the destruction, all the disruptions of my life, all these problems that have come out of this, and my injury, and all the ongoing harassment. There are many agencies and people who've worked for them who participated in this directly, and I have proof of all of it. So there is a situation here because of Special Tree keeping me banned permanently, basically for the rest of my dad's life, based on lies and delusions when it can all be proven. That is something they're responsible for. They're responsible for his decline. They're responsible for taking all those years away from myself, my son, and my dad, and allowing my estranged mother to continue to operate and have Munchausen by proxy and commit all these crimes and poison all these batches of food when I told everybody this in advance. And not one person even wanted to verify any of it. They just continued on. So there's a really serious issue. They're not a trustworthy care facility. I would never put your loved one at one if you don't have to. At any care facility, especially Special Tree, especially because of the level of crimes that they've participated in and the destruction and everything they've caused since his injury. So that is something that does need to be looked into. What they have participated in directly is criminal in nature, and that would be Romulus Police Department's job. But at this point, Romulus Police Department has also participated in the crimes, and I have proof of that, and I've already released those videos as well. So somebody needs to look into Special Tree Spinal Care Facility in Romulus, the Romulus Police Department, and all these other videos where I mention who's participated and the different cities, the different agencies. They're all connected. They're all interconnected with each other. They're all participating in the crimes. So that also includes Terry Knorr from North Star Care Management, who's in charge of my dad's workers' comp claim. This includes the Brownstown Police Department, because numerous officers participated there. Also wrote false reports on me there at the same time this is going on in Romulus. It's all intertwined with each other. All of these people are responsible. Megan Kinder from Adult Protective Services, she also participated in Romulus, and she participated in lying in probate court. There are several Special Tree employees who also lied in probate court on my deranged mother's behalf, just stating whatever bullshit that she told them to say, and they just believe it, and they state it in court. And there's numerous attorneys in the Wayne County Probate Court who also participated and lied on my mother's behalf. It's all tied back to the Special Tree Spinal Care Facility, them banning me, and all the different false reports they've made on me. So they are all tied together. This is organized crime. These are RICO crimes. And I won't be stopping until people are arrested and justice is served, because I've lost more than I can even add up and put together. I've lost my entire life. I've lost my health. I've lost quality of life. I've lost the ability to rebuild. I've lost everything I've worked for and more repeatedly, and I've lost over $3 million of money that I've worked for, and my missing stolen trust fund that all of these people have been stealing from along the way, trying to get their hands on what's left. So I will be back with more. Thanks. Bye.